Hello and welcome back to the Art of Film podcast run by yours truly, Jaden Torres. And on today's episode, we have a special guest. This is an up and coming producer in the horror genre, and her name is Allison Ortiz. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Jaden. Yeah, I did just release a film actually, and I am the producer and actress actually in the new movie called Dead Link.
Deadlink. It's an interesting name. Tell me more about it.
Well, the film is about how these two teenage girls who are bored and download an app that has been kind of going around in school and they decide to try it out. At first, it seems like a game, but it starts getting weird and creepy towards the end. Eventually, the app sends them to their own house, and at the end, there's a twist where a figure suddenly appears in the backseat of their car.
So you said you're an actress in this film, right?
Yeah, I play one of the teenage girls called Sarah.
Okay, tell me more about this character.
Well, Sarah's a more rebellious girl in the film. She's best friends with this girl, Evie, who is more of like the soft hearted, more cautious, more aware in the film.
Got it. Sounds great. Now let's get deep into this movie. I got 4 analysis questions that you're going to answer about your new film.
Okay, that sounds great. Tell me more about them.
Okay, question 1. How does your product use or challenge conventions, and how does it represent social groups or issues?
Well, in my film, you can't really see everything clearly, which makes, I guess, the audience feel unsure and kind of nervous. I learned that a lot actually from horror films. For example, the movie Conjuring. Have you watched it?
Yes, of course I've seen The Conjuring. It's one of the best horror films to be released.
Yeah, didn't that movie make, like, the lighting of that movie make you feel more intense and scary?
Yes, for sure. I definitely feel like the lighting played a huge role in making the audience and especially me feel scared.
Yeah, me too. In my film, I also use suspense instead of just jumping straight into something scary. At the beginning of my film, my opening film, everything feels normal. They're just bored using their phones, but then things slowly start to feel off. The slow build up the slow build up is really something that keeps the audience thinking like, okay, something's not right.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's very common in horror films.
Yeah, and in the middle and at the end of my film, I use that a black figure is suddenly appearing in the far distance and at the end in the back seat. This is like meant to shock the audience and leave them thinking about what just happened, you know?
It sounds intense.
Yeah, and at the same time, my film kind of challenges like typical horror because instead of something like a haunted house, the main problem is actually the app. It's like paranormal. So it's more modern based and based on technology, which makes it feel more realistic.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like it's not your typical horror movie.
Yeah, it's definitely not. For the representation part of your question, I focus on two teenage girls. I show them as pretty normal and relatable. They're just bored, messing around on their phones, like a typical teenager stuff do. But they also become vulnerable when things start getting serious. That reflects real life because people don't actually always realize some when something is dangerous until it's too late.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like typical teenage behavior. So now we're going to move on to the next question. How does your product engage with audiences, and how would it be distributed as a real media text?
My main target audience is mainly teenagers and young adults, especially people who like horror or thriller films. I think they would relate to the characters because they're similar in age and they use apps and phones like literally all the time.
Oh, I'm part of that audience.
Then you would really enjoy my film. But I try to engage the audience by making the situation feel realistic. For example, like definitely every one of us has gotten bored and decided to use their phone to find something to do or to just get out of this boredom that we have. So it makes the story feel like it could actually happen, you know? I feel like that's what makes it more scary. I also build suspense so the audience stays interested the whole time. Instead of showing everything at once, I slowly build up and reveal things, which makes people curious and kind of tense while watching.
Yeah, I understand. To keep people on the edge of their seat.
Yeah, and at the end of my opening film, it's basically where the two girls were once in a car, look back, and they're not in the car anymore. The scene shows the car basically like on hazards. It's just the yellow lights are blinking on and off. It's like to I use this to show the scene more memorable, to make it more memorable to the audience. If it was a real film, it would probably be on streaming platforms like Netflix or Amazon Prime Video. When it does get released, it is going to be released in those type of platforms. But that's what people my age use, young adults or teenagers. It could be promoted on apps like TikTok with short clips to attract attention, or on different social media platforms.
Yes, I definitely have subscriptions to all those platforms. So let's move on to the third question. How did your production skills develop throughout this project?
During this project, I definitely improved my production skills. At first, I didn't really think about things like camera angles or lighting that much, but as I kept working, I started understanding how important they are. For example, I learned that close up shots are really important and really useful for showing emotions or focusing on important details. For example, when the two teenage girls see a black figure in the distance, I did a close up shot to really show their emotion and it really did capture, like if you are there in person. Also, planning. Everybody underestimates planning. Planning is such a good and beneficial thing to have. Like for example, making a shot list or making a storyboard helps me and would definitely help others stay organized. It made filming so much easier because I already knew what I wanted to do. I didn't have to stop my characters or my co-actors and tell them and be confused on what we should do, like mid acting. That was a problem at the start because I'm a new producer, but towards the end or towards the mid end I realized like this would be so much easier if I literally just got a list or just planned it out really carefully like a script. It was so useful.
Oh, so you had some problems. Now tell me about some other ones you had.
One other problem I had, I guess, was the lighting, like it not looking right or needing to redo scenes. For example, there's this one scene in my film that the girls are in the car listening to music, just vibing, and then the lighting from the windshield was not making my dark skinned girl looking good. It made her look darker and you couldn't really see her. But that actually just helped me learn how to fix things and adjust. It was a learning experience. So I got better at problem solving too, I guess you could say. But overall, I feel more confident now and I understand more about how films are actually made, which was a great learning experience, just this whole film combined.
So is it a movie or an opening film?
For right now, it's an opening film.
Okay, got it. Now moving on to the final question. And it says, how did you integrate technologies, software, hardware, and online in this project?
I use different types of technology throughout this project. For filming, I use a camera, an actual camera, professional camera, and a phone. I use my phone camera to test out new angles, like different shots, and then I filmed it on the actual camera. For editing, I use software to cut clips, add transitions, and include sound effects. Editing was really important because it helped me control the pacing and build suspense for the audience. I also use the internet to research horror films and get ideas, because sometimes as a producer, you get clocked out and checked out of like how many days you could do. The internet really helped me understand what works in a genre, especially a paranormal one. Also, as a producer, you get like really messy. Like sometimes if you don't have anything organized, like I said, planning is a really big thing. So I use apps like my notes app to help me to keep track of my progress and show me how my ideas developed over time.
Wow, that honestly sounds really great. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast today, Allison. It was great speaking with you.
It was great being here. Thank you for having me.
Well, that concludes the end of our podcast. Have a good night, and we'll see you next time.